What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Mover Mailbag. I know it's been a while, but I've had a couple good episodes of Mondays with Mover and been busy with the car stuff and flying and everything, so hope you guys enjoyed. If it's your first time back to the channel, I'm cwlemoine, author of the Spectre series and the Alex Shepard series. If you haven't, please pick those up. Pick one of those up. Finny Flight is my latest book. It's part of the Spectre series. It just came out on the 21st, and it's available in the ebook or paperback format. So what this Mover Mailbag segment is about, I am a former F-16 pilot. I flew in the Air Force Reserve, and I flew in the Navy Reserve, F-18s, and now I'm flying T-38s in the Air Force Reserve. So I like to take questions from viewers and answer those questions, and hopefully pay it forward and help inspire the next generation, because I think being a fighter pilot is one of the coolest jobs you can have, but also just being a military pilot in general. So with that said, a couple things I have found out before I get to the actual mail, which there's no kidding mail today. ROTC. So I just actually talked to a recruiter, Air Force Reserve Officer Accessions recruiter, which when we talk about recruiters, it's always important to make sure you're talking to the right recruiter. There are basically two types of recruiters. There's the recruiters that typically live in the strip malls that are for enlisted recruiters, or that you talk to on af.mil or af.com or whatever the standard Air Force website where you just get basic information. And then there are Officer Accessions recruiters. And in your journey to become a fighter pilot, it's very important to know the difference between the two, because enlisted recruiters don't always have all the information about becoming an officer, and they can't help you. They can only refer you to the Officer Accessions recruiter, which is important for going to AFRC, which AFRC is Air Force Reserve Command, unsponsored boards or sponsored boards or anything like that. So if you don't go through one of the other ways, like the Air Force Academy, the Navy Academy, or the Naval Academy, or ROTC, you'll be going through Officer Training School, OTS board, or AFRC board, or the Air National Guard, and those have to be done with Officer Accessions recruiters. So that's a very important distinction to make. Anyway, so I was talking to my friend who is an Officer Accessions recruiter. He helped me get back from the Navy Reserve to the Air Force Reserve, and about a week ago, on one of the Instagram posts I made about one of the AFRC units was having a hiring board, someone mentioned that now from ROTC, ROTC is what you do in college, you can actually apply to reserve and guard units and get picked up and go to pilot training. So whereas that used to be called Palace Chase, I think, where if you found a unit to hire you, you could. Now, pretty new system, you basically, I think it's within a year of graduation. I don't have the specifics on that. If you decide, you can opt to do this, and the ROTC unit will help you do this. You can decide to apply to a reserve unit, so you go rush the reserve unit. You can have them hire you, and you can go from ROTC bypassing OTS, because you'll already be commissioned. You can commission through ROTC and become a fighter pilot at that unit, which is probably the coolest deal I've ever heard with regard to this, because what that allows you to do is go to school and do ROTC in school, and it gives you the doors are wide open. You can go. You can continue and go active duty and become, you go through the active duty process. You can get ROTC scholarships, which help pay for college. You can go to, you can go sponsored, so you can go rush a unit and get hired like I did, an F-16 unit. You can go unsponsored, which if you go unsponsored, that means you would go to the recruiter, and the recruiter would put you to the unsponsored board, and then you kind of go into a pool of applicants, and once the unsponsored board, if you get selected, then a unit picks you up. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a heavy or a helo or something other than a fighter, just because the fighter units have the majority of the applicants and they can be selective. So the only way to really get a fighter unit is for that fighter unit to hire you. But it's still a pilot slot, so it's definitely an option. So it's an awesome idea. I love it. I think, now that I know about this, I absolutely recommend it. So if you're in high school right now, or you're just starting college and you're like, I don't know how to become a fighter pilot, I don't know what I want to do. If your college has ROTC, go join it, because there's not a whole lot of risk now. I mean, you can apply to reserve units, and if you get picked up, you're going to a fighter, you're guaranteed, as long as you make the grades, and as long as, you do everything, it's just getting a guaranteed fighter slot doesn't mean anything other than where you're going to go and what you're going to fly, and that can change. Somebody pointed out that their unit transitioned to UAVs, which is very possible. It's not always a guarantee, but but if you don't get picked up, you can just go active duty, and then you're in the normal active duty pipeline. So, I mean, that's a huge win. I think I'm so happy that they're doing that. I think it's awesome. So my advice now is, if you're in high school and you want to get college paid for, the Air Force Academy is a wonderful institution and it's a wonderful option. Apply to the Air Force Academy. Absolutely. Try that. Air Force or Naval Academy. If that doesn't work and you want to go to the Air Force, go ROTC, because your options are open. At that point, you can go ROTC and apply to reserve units, guard units, whatever, while you're there. Or if that doesn't work out, you can go unsponsored. Or if that doesn't work out, then you just go the normal active duty route. But you always are protected. And if you don't have ROTC and there's no crosstown units or anything like that, then after college, start applying to everything. My advice is always, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, because don't pass up a guaranteed thing for something that you think might happen, because as I've demonstrated throughout my career, things change. I never thought I would be back in the Air Force after going to the Navy Reserve. I never thought that the opportunities that I had would present themselves to me. And it's just because, you just don't close any doors, don't slam any doors behind you, because you just never know how it's going to work out. From there, you have a lot of options. And if you want to go to the Navy, obviously the Navy doesn't have such a program, but Navy ROTC is a great option. Naval Academy is another option. And then OCS boards after college, which is what Gonky talked about in his video. That's what Gonky did. And so you'll always have a lot of options. Another thing I mentioned in the previous vlog is that the new age is 33 with waivers up to 35. So I asked the recruiter a couple other things that he wanted me to bring up, kind of like, hey, what are you seeing? One of the things he mentioned, and that's going to be one of these questions here in a second, is flight time. You don't have to have a private pilot's license, but flight time is important, and it doesn't have to be a lot. At the bare minimum, 5 to 10 hours of flight time will put you in the ballpark, but preferably in the 20 to 40 hour range, because what that'll do is give you a higher pilot candidate selection method, PCSM score. What it'll also do is you'll do better in your subsequent training. It shows that you have a desire to be a pilot. Now, if you can't afford it, and you can't get any hours, there are still units that will hire you with 0 flight time. That's not a deal breaker. It's just, to be a competitive applicant, it's always good to put yourself in that position, even if it's only a couple hours, because that helps. And the other thing, if you're doing the ROTC program, I think this came up recently, make sure you take the AFOQT before you transition, because you still have to meet all the wickets that are required for the AFRC rated sponsored or unsponsored board, which require you to have the AFOQT, the PCSM done, all that stuff. Your ROTC unit should have you do that, but just make sure you're checking all the squares before you make that leap. But awesome program. I really appreciate him for answering those questions for me, and I hope that helps you guys out a lot. First question, it's not really a question, it's a comment. I just want to address it because I think it's not really a fair assessment. And I got this comment off of a video about a week ago, and it's from Paula, and she says, "Hello, you keep referring to guys. I'm wondering if you intend, whether overtly or not, to exclude women following your career path." Absolutely not. The guys is just a generic term. It is, for lack of a better term, it's just me being lazy. I don't have time to say guys or girls, because I think it's implied. I think in 2019, it's kind of assumed that men or women can do this job. So, and I've had many friends that have become, female fighter pilots, female military pilots in general, heavies, tankers, helos, whatever, and then airline pilots I've flown with women. It's just, I don't see anything there. I think it's it's kind of a non-event. So absolutely, women can be fighter pilots, women can be pilots. I think it's time to move on and stop trying to be offended by just about everything for no good reason. It's just a term. Don't read anything into it. All right, so a nice one. Harrison writes, Dear CW Lemoine, thank you so much for your advice and your constant videos, which supply my motivation and discipline to achieve my goals. Each day I feel like watching your videos in conjunction while doing my schoolwork. It pays off. Thank you so much, Harrison. Yeah, keep doing your schoolwork, get good grades, make them tell you no. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and that just helps keep the channel going. It does mean a lot. I got an actual letter, and these are always fun. I'm going to skip a lot of the intro stuff, not because his name's Will says anything bad, but I just, like to strip all the personally identifiable stuff just in case, the guy's Russian fighter squadrons. But the gist of it is, he's currently in college. He's contacting Guard Reserve units for a pilot slot. He's spoken to a couple of them, and he's trying to decide on dates to go visit them. So he gets good grades. He's had some internships in Washington. 2 years ago, he interned on Capitol Hill, which is awesome. He's confident that he's going to get some good letters of recommendation, and he started working for a job to pay for flight lessons and volunteering at the National Air Force Museum. So he's got a pretty good resume. Do you have any advice about visiting these units? And I keep saying I'm going to do a video about how to rush, but I'll answer that here in a second. Is there anything I should bring or mention while I'm there to make myself stick out? In regards to the package I submit, letters of recommendation, transcripts, AFOQT, and TBAS scores, and other forms, is there anything I should be sure to include and make it most competitive? I know they say they look at the whole person concept, but is there anything that they specifically look for over others? Thank you for all your help. You've been an inspiration. I'm a big fan of all the content. Thanks, Will. And I mean, look at this. This is a letter. He handwrote this letter. That's awesome. So to answer the question specifically, and again, this is unofficial. I'm not sanctioned, certified, sponsored by any Air Force Reserve, Air National Guard, Air Force in general. I'm just doing this as me. It's me personally, CW Lemoine. So, but advice visiting these units, rule number one, don't be a douche. And when you go, just be yourself. A lot of people try to, present themselves as something or not. They get all worked up and stuff. But when you go visit a unit, they're trying to see who you really are, because you got to understand, typically speaking, a reserve or guard unit is hiring a person for the long haul. They're thinking you're going to show up on day one as a fully qualified wingman or co-pilot or whatever, depending on what you fly. And they're thinking they're hiring somebody for a full career, so a 20-year career. It may not be true, it doesn't always happen that way, but they're trying to hire somebody that they want to be around in the squadron on a day-to-day basis, someone that they're going to want to deploy with, someone that is not going to be painful to hang around. So be yourself. Just be yourself. Now, as far as anything I should bring, I don't know the most current one on that one. It used to be you'd bring, because they changed it. Used to be called a squadron bar. Now it's like a heritage room. it's the political correctness stuff. Usually you bring a gift to the bar. It's a bottle of whatever that they're, Jack Daniels, Gentleman Jack is a standard one. Even if you don't have to drink. I don't drink, but you can bring a gift to the bar. It's just a token of goodwill, and it's usually preferred. You don't have to, but it does help. As far as anything to do to make your package the most competitive, attention to detail. This is the part where it may not gain you any points, but you'll lose points. So proofread. Make sure it's grammatically correct. You don't have any spelling, punctuation errors, and follow the instructions to a T. If they ask for certain things, give them exactly what they're asking for and the method that they're asking for it. And this will apply to whether you're going to a Guard Reserve Board or to an airline interview, especially places like Delta and stuff like that. You actually get graded on, how closely you pay attention to their instructions, because, it's just an attention to detail thing. So, and it is, you're right, it's the whole person concept. So if all your scores are high, your GPA is good and all that stuff, then it's a matter of just, get the details right, be yourself, don't be a douche, be respectful, if you do decide to partake in alcohol, don't be an idiot. You know, don't get yourself too drunk. Don't drink and drive. You know, I mean, show that you have good judgment, because that's part of the interview process. So, but again, you don't have to do any of that stuff. It's not required. It's just, you know, be yourself. Be a good person. You'll be fine. Next question. This is from Adam. Adam says, recently you've been talking a lot about flying for the ANG and the ability to apply for the specific squadron you wish to fly at. If you are able to pick your airframe and location with the ANG, why do the majority of aspiring pilots apply for active duty USAF and take the risk of being assigned an unwanted aircraft location as well as relocation every 2 to 3 years? In addition, I'm curious as to if there are any differences between full-time ANG and flying active duty. Thanks for your time. Keep up the fantastic content, Adam. I am not a psychologist. You know, I don't know why people do what they do. But, you know, okay, so I talk a lot about the Guard and Reserve because that's what I did, and I think it's a good deal. There's a lot to be, I mean, while this channel has gotten into the weeds a little bit on doing things to set yourself up for, you know, having a good quality of life with the airlines or whatever, the bottom line is your overarching goal, and why a lot of people do this is and should do this, is because it's service to your country. You are signing a blank check payable up to and including your life to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You're going to take an oath, and it's very important that you internalize that. So why people do that is because they want to go serve their country, and they just don't care how. You know, and it is likely, I'm not going to say it's likely, it is very possible to get a fighter slot active duty. I mean, guys do it all the time. I mean, the Guard Reserve is a good deal, but it's not always a good deal. Sometimes, you know, when the airlines aren't doing well, full-time jobs are very hard to come by. Sometimes units are closing. Sometimes units aren't hiring. Sometimes it's just not an option. People don't know about it. So don't mistake me trying to educate people on another way to fulfill your dreams as me saying that, well, the active duty is stupid. I would never do that, because I think it's a great way to serve your country. I think it's awesome to be able to go and, you know, maybe fly multiple aircraft, get in positions of leadership, do all that stuff. You know, have a 20-year career. You know, you'll have a good experience. So please don't mistake me talking something good for making the active duty bad. Now, you know, you can go full-time in the Guard Reserve. It's the best of both worlds. As far as your question about what's the difference between the two, on a day-to-day basis, not much at all. I mean, it's you're full-time. You're going to have all the full-time benefits. You're going to, you know, basically be flying the same amount. You know, there's not much difference other than, you know, you might have an Air National Guard patch on your shoulder, on your chest, or you might have Air Force Reserve Command patch on your chest or something. You know, it's not going to be a huge difference. So, but please, again, active duty is a very valid option. Don't mistake what I'm talking about here. All right, next question. He says, good afternoon, Mover. First, I want to thank you for everything you do. I love your videos, huge inspiration. I'm currently a junior studying flight science and plan to earn my CFI by the time I graduate. I know that I want to be specifically an air superiority fighter pilot, F-15C and F-22 pilot. I've considered options from directly applying to OTS, Air National Guard, and Marines. Even though the Marines don't have the F-15s and F-22s, I've talked to several different recruiters and I'm still completely unsure what I should do when I graduate. That leaves me with a few questions for you if you don't mind answering them. Number one, what is your opinion on having a goal so specific? I know that it's important to keep an open mind. Obviously, wouldn't mind something else as long as it involves serving my country and flying. I was just curious on your opinion on my shoot for the moon mentality. Number two, I realized you originally worked a job with a fighter squadron, which led you to earning your pilot slot. What is your recommendation for the easiest and most risk-free way to go about earning a pilot slot in the Air Force? Is there no way of getting around the fact that I have to enlist before guaranteeing a pilot slot in the Air Force? If not, what are some ways I can really increase my chances of earning a pilot slot? Okay. Number one, what is my opinion of having a goal so specific? It's based on nothing. You know, I don't mean you don't know what you don't know at this point in your career. You don't know what air superiority is. From a tactical standpoint, it's a great ambition. You know, I mean, it's shiny jet syndrome, but having never done it, you don't know what the community's like. So, I mean, it's great to say, and I applaud that you have goals, but I just, don't sell short other missions for the sake of shooting for something that you don't know about, because you don't know what you don't know, and there's a reason the public doesn't know about, you know, the specifics of the missions. We do, because I mean, obviously we don't want the enemies to know, our enemies to know either. But you know, air superiority seems glamorous, you know, it's Top Gun, it's all that stuff, it's dogfighting, all that. But I think close air support is probably one of the greatest missions out there to be able to support the troops on the ground, and no aircraft does that quite as well as probably the A-10, but the F-16 does close air support, F-18 does close air support, many different aircraft do close air support, and that's a good mission to have. DCA, which is defensive counter air, which is your air superiority, is what you're talking about, is a lot of fun to do, but it's not really a current thing we do a lot of right now. I mean, right now, you know, our wars are fought in the desert where we don't have a real air threat presently. Now that can change. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the news and stuff, but so the air superiority only mission, I think, is kind of misguided, because you don't know, you know, you haven't done it, you haven't seen both sides of it. So don't give up. I would apply everywhere. I'd apply to every fighter. I would apply, you know, if it's local to you, I would apply to every board you can, and I would just give up the idea of chasing a shiny jet, because when you get to where you're going, you know, you just don't know how that's going to lead. You know, you might get an F-16, it'll be the happiest day. I mean, the story happens over and over again where guys show up to pilot training saying, I want to be you know, Raptor pilot, and then they go fly something else like the A-10, and it's the happiest because it's the coolest jet they've ever flown. You know, it's awesome. So I recommend against it. I think it's cool that you've got goals, and absolutely pursue your goal of being a fighter pilot, but you know, just be careful about the shiny jet thing, because you don't have enough information to even make that statement right now, because you've never done it. It's not something that the general public goes out and would do. And having done multi-role, you know, I can say that, you know, it is fun, but you know, and it's a valid mission, and you know, it's a very good mission, but it not to the expense of other missions. So that's question one. And I'm not sure where you get this. Yes, I was a student hire as a GS3 and then a GS4, which is not enlisting, and you don't have to enlist at all to guarantee a pilot slot in the Air Force. That's not a thing. So, but as far as the easiest and most risk-free way to go about earning a pilot slot, well, there's no such thing as risk-free at any point in this career. I mean, you're going to take risks from, you know, even having the pilot slot from the moment you step. There's always going to be some risk. So there's no, you know, because you can get the pilot training as an, you know, F-16 guard guy or whatever and wash out. I mean, there's just no guarantee. But what we talked about at the beginning of this episode, you know, I now recommend ROTC if you're still in college, and if you're not still in college, just apply everywhere. Apply to the first place that takes you. Don't sacrifice any other. You know, don't sacrifice the bird in hand. If the A-10 unit's willing to hire you, take it. Just take it. Don't look back. You'll enjoy it. It'll be awesome. Now, if the Eagle unit wants to hire you and that's your first choice, yeah. Tell them all this stuff. Tell them you've always wanted to be air superiority. Tell them all that stuff. They'll love it. But there's so many missions that are valid on the pointy end of the spear in, you know, the military that I just think it could be foolish to discount those without actually having experience in the profession. This is from Walter. Mr. Lemoine, I was watching a lot of your YouTube videos about your switch from becoming a fighter pilot into an airline pilot. It's basically what I want to be doing minus the fighter pilot stuff. I want to fly heavies, particularly C-17s. At the moment, I have no flight hours. After looking at prices of flight school in my area, they're all really expensive. I'm going to be applying to OTS and trying to get a pilot slot soon. Do you think my lack of flight hours will hurt me in a big way? It's the thing that I'm the most nervous about. Also, do you know of any alternatives to get flight time without having to spend thousands of dollars to get PPL? Thanks, Walter. OTS, no. I don't think lack of a pilot, or as I talked about at the beginning, you know, flight hours helps, especially when you talk to fighter units and stuff like that. You don't necessarily need a private pilot's license, but it will help. Lack of flight time won't be a deal breaker, especially OTS on the active duty side. They don't necessarily need it. It will help your scores, but if you have high scores without it, you know, go with it. But if you're looking for some alternatives to get some flight time without spending $1,000, go look at your local Civil Air Patrol unit. It is a great mission. It's kind of paramilitary, and you'll get some good training. And I think now they have ways to get your private pilot's license. So don't quote me on that. Just check that out, and that's another valid option. So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. This is probably a really long episode, but I hope I've answered a lot of your questions. I know it's been a couple weeks. Please keep sending your letters and emails and comments, and I will try to answer as much as I can. I hope you all have great success in becoming pilots in the military and realizing your dreams. So at the end of the day, don't rely on a YouTube channel. Make them tell you no. Apply everywhere, and take the first job that'll hire you, and just enjoy the journey and enjoy it, because it's some of the best flying with some of the best people in the world's greatest Air Force. So hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.